Hello and welcome to this tutorial called Getting Started in Final Cut Express. I'm going to give you an overview of Final Cut Express as it will be the program we primarily use in this class to edit and make media. The first thing I'd like to show you is that this is the browser window. This is where your media will be imported to. This here is the viewer window where you're able to preview what it is you're going to include in an edit. And once you've edited material, it'll go onto a timeline down here, but it'll show up over here in the canvas. So I want you to think of this as your program out. This is what you want the audience at home to see over here. Down here below is your timeline with time code along the top, and this little yellow triangle is your playhead. You've got multiple layers here of video as well as audio, which you can either mute from seeing by clicking these buttons, lock from being edited at all. You can also make sure that snapping, this little button here, is on so that your edits kind of butt up right against each other without any gaps. And we'll go over some of the other buttons later, but this is your audio meters right here, and here are your tool palettes, which are very important. Should you begin to want to get back to the desktop, the first thing you need to know is not to minimize like this. If you minimize your windows, you'll soon lose windows. The best thing to do is hit Command H, and that'll hide your whole program. And to get back to it, you would just find it on the dock right below Final Cut Express. The icon looks like this, and pull it right back up again. And that's basically a shortcut to help you really get back all your windows. If you do find that you lose a window, just go to Window, Arrange, Small Windows, and it fills the screen perfectly. Everything comes back up proportionately, and you'll have all the tool palette, audio meters that fits your screen. It's great. So step one in Final Cut is really importing a clip. To import a clip, we're going to do an example. You just go to File, Import, Files. If you have your media on an external hard drive like I do here, you can just grab the media off of the external by double-clicking it. It's very important, though, to note that if you're grabbing from a flash drive or a thumb drive, whatever you take will go offline if you take out the external hard drive from the computer. So you always want to have it in first and then launch or relaunch your project. If you're bringing it in from a camera, you can just go to File, Log and Transfer. And in most situations, the camera's media will stay right in Final Cut. Log and Transfer is actually a window like this. It'll look for your media on a camera device, and then you just select I don't have a camera here, but you would select the clips that are showing, the ones you'd want, and you'd hit Add Selection to Queue, and it'll load into your browser. I'm going to import a clip straight from the external hard drive here, and I'm going to import, let's take a best of the finals. I'm going to choose Austin's final, and I'm going to import that one, and now I have a clip. I'll double click on it that I will edit. And as you can see, you can make you can use the playhead here to scrub through your media. The next step is really making an in point or an out point to decide where in your media you want your clip to start or end. So I'm going to go double click again back on this video, and let's just say I want the video only of their paddles here. I will make it I on my keyboard to make an in point. That's the shortcut. I will hit spacebar to play it, and then I'll play it again, and I'll look for my out point. You could also just scrub along if you choose to, or use the arrow keys to scrub slowly. You could use also this little wheel to scrub slowly, but I'm going to make this my out point right here. To make it an out point, you hit on the keyboard O for out. Now I have an in point and an out point. I've decided that that's where I want my first clip to be. So I'm going to grab that from the middle here, and I'm going to go up and to the right. and this tool palette pops up. And I'm going to choose whether I want to insert it or insert it with a transition. The other tools are kind of like when you have some other media to either replace or overwrite or fit to fill the gap of. So right now we're just going to start with the yellow, which is inserted, with a transition, which means it will fade up from black. And it will look like this. And it's not at the very beginning because my playhead wasn't, so I'm going to actually back this up. And I'm going to click on the gap, and I'm going to hit my delete button to back it up. Now, as you can see, there's this big big red bar, and in order to make this go away and playable, as you can see, it's unrendered, I have to render these files. So I'm going to choose render all, render both, and it will write the video and the audio files to a particular folder. This is important so that the computer is able to process whatever it is you're asking it to do for the edit. So this takes a little while, and it will store the files as needed. Okay, so now that we've made in points and out points, we're going to start with adding some transitions or effects. If I'm going to choose another, let's just pick a different in point and out point of my second clip here, and I want it to be maybe when these two are meeting. And I'm going to make a new in using the button I, and I'll scrub along, and I'm going to make an O right there, an out point. I'm going to then grab this, and I'm going to also insert. But let's say I don't want a transition that's a dissolve. Under your effects tabs, you have a bunch of video transitions that you can choose. By choosing one of these 3D simulations, you could have the cube spin, a swing, a zoom. There's lots of effects like you could do like flashback and earthquake and shake something. So depending on the kind of effect you're going for, you can choose a lot of different things. But what you need to make sure is that you click the point that the two clips meet right there. And then you go to effects. Video transitions, and I'm just going to pick for fun a cube spin. It's going to ask me once again to render, and the shortcut for this, because it gets annoying kind of to go up and hit render, render all, render both, is actually Command R. So by hitting Command R, I'm once again able to render. The rendering is actually the worst part of Final Cut because it's constantly asking you to save these files and process so that it's able to process it, and depending on how elaborate your effects are, the render process takes longer. So this isn't too long, this is about a minute, but I'm going to once again pause it and move on to our next step. Now that we've finished that render, I'm just going to show you what it looks like by playing it here. So we're going to go from the media here in the canvas window to the cube spin, which looks like that. So your transitions can be a lot of fun. One other thing I'd like to move on to, so that's transitions, effects. Effects can be considered something that alters the video. So we go to video filters too for effects. So let's just say I wanted to make this black and white. I can go to a particular key here and change the chroma key. I can change it to a tint of some kind. So depending on, and as you can see now black and white, you have so much ability to play and alter the video under those effects tabs. Please explore them. They're great. The next thing we're going to learn after adding effects is actually using the tool palette. The tool palette is over here on your right hand side, and I'm just going to go over what they are. If you hover over them, the actual name of the tools pop up. So this arrow here is your selector tool. This is your edit selection tool. Over here you have track forward or backwards, and if you hold them down, there's multiple tools that you can choose for where you're tracking. This is your roll tool, and if you hold it down, this is your ripple tool. I'll explain those in a minute as well. Over here is your slip tool, and then if you hold it down, you have your slide tool. Here's your razor blade, which allows you to cut, as well as your razor blade all tool. This is your ability to zoom as well, and then you're on the hand tool, which allows you to kind of not move something. This is your ability to crop, and also distort. And here we have your pen tool. The tool palette for your information is also on the Final Cut the Final Cut Express tab, as well as all of these steps. If you go to my website, www.digitalmedia.weebly.com, and you go under the Final Cut Express tab, you will find step-by-step tutorials as well as information listing exactly how to do what it is I'm describing for you. So you can go back to this or you can re-listen to the tutorial. And on there, the tool palette is described in purple. What is the razor blade tool? It splits a clip where you want to make a cut. The ripple tool uses to make you move in, edit, point in or out without leaving a gap. So these I want you to explore on your own time. We'll get into them in a little bit when we really start working more in Final Cut, but just know that's where the tool palette is. Oops, and you see they've minimized, they've disappeared. I'll go back to my windows and bring them back. My window arrange small windows, okay. And that is your tool palette. Okay, next, with using the tool palette. So I'll just show you and demonstrate a little bit. The roll tool allows me to roll this edit forward or back, depending on where I want it to be. There's no gap as a result of that. The ripple tool is only one side, so I can only bring out this one side. I can't really go the other way. It'll tell me no. The slide tool allows you to keep your, edits the same, just picking a different point in which you want it to go on the timeline. And the slip tool allows you to pick the same clip, but maybe just a different in point and out point from the raw video. It gets a little technical, but the more you use it, it makes more sense. Okay, so we're moving on to adding text. So if I wanted to add text to this, there's a little A right here on the viewer window where you can go down to text and just outline text, or you can choose a lower third text, or you can choose a crawl, which will move across the screen or up or down, or scroll, text, or typewriter. So let's just say I make a typewriter tool and I want it to say Austin's final exam. And then I hit play here, it'll type it out. So there's a lot of different text that you can play with. Under the controls tab is where you have to type. And if you scroll down actually in this window, you can also alter the size, settings, alignment, style, color, spacing, kerning, etc. So by the same way you pull a clip into the timeline is the same way you will pull this into the timeline. You could insert it or you can drag it over a clip. So if I wanted it to appear on top of something, I'm just going to go back to my selector tool and trim it back and forth. It will appear on this particular, oh, I have to render it, but it'll appear over this clip. As you can see, I'm previewing it right now by just scrubbing. But to play it, you really have to render it. Okay, let's see. Once you've really finished your project and you have your audio, your video, you have your text and your effects, you have your inputs and your outputs all in the right place, and you've moved your inputs and outputs as per your style, so everything fits. The last thing you're going to really do is get the project off of the program and into a file that's playable for others. And that's called exporting, the process of taking something out. So I like to export using QuickTime Conversion. I prefer that we all do. These steps seem really technical, and you can also find them on my website under exporting. So there's a separate tab for that under exporting. So exporting settings. So if you're going to export using a high def version, you can go here and follow these settings. If you're going to export using compressed settings, which is small for the web, you can do that as well here. There are individual screeners for you to look at and watch where a student is teaching you this process. I'm going to give you just the overview in this, but you can always revisit it if you're confused or just don't recall the steps. So first thing you have to do is name your project. I'm going to call this Austin's Final, and I'm going to go to Options. All right, Settings is your video settings. How big do you want it to be? This is your frame rate, every 24 frames per second, or do you want it automatic? Do you want it faster encode or single pass? So what does that mean? That means that the compressor will reduce the quality if you do a single pass, but we want best quality. If you restrict the data rate, you're going to make it smaller for downloads. So depending on high def, whether you're doing something high def or small for the web, this is where we're changing the compressor's settings. The size is basically your aspect ratio. Like if your television screen is 4:3, it's small square. But if it's a 16:9 widescreen, this is where we look at this. So these are high def settings down here. PAL is international for the European settings, and NTSC is usually something we use for the web. So I would do, if it's web, 720x480, 16:9. I never really do 4:3 anymore. Everyone really sticks to 16:9, but they have an option here for you. If we're going to do something for broadcast quality, though, you really should be in high def. So we could hit OK, deinterlace the source video, which means that it's going to actually process that video frame by frame. I uncheck prepare for internet, and I make sure my sound is checked on over here, and then I just hit OK. The export process takes a very long time depending on how big the project is. This is only a 20-second video. So you really need to make sure you're allocating the proper amount of time for a project. Kids are always amazed at how long the export process takes. So please keep that in mind. And that's really it. I'm going to cancel that export. And now it's your turn. I want you to follow these steps and begin importing and editing your All About Me digital story. You're going to find pictures as well as music of things you like or of pictures of things you do. You can be in them. You can choose objects like a basketball that doesn't have you in them. But I'd like you to write a script along with the visuals that you see. So you should have audio that includes narration and music, as well as visuals that have evidence of text and dissolves and transitions. Please make sure you take a look at the rubric on my website, and I want you to begin working now. Thank you.